right, guys. At the end of this episode, something crazy is going to happen. Stay tuned.
I've been at this, I'm going to admit it, almost 4 decades. Actually, a little bit longer than that. So I've traveled the world speaking, 63 countries in total, produced over 2,000 events, kind of a deep media background. I'm a talk show host here in Las Vegas, Nevada on Channel 3 NBC is where I air my show, where I interview people under the label of amazing authorities. And one day I'm going to grow up and have my own podcast like you guys. Woo. And when I grow up, yes. See, I'm a long way from there. I need facial hair and sunglasses to fit in. So So
if you got a pair of your own, you could join us easily.
Well, I understand. Do I grow in? Because I'd have to color it because I already do that. I don't want to look my mature age. That's a secret I can't reveal on this show. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Let's keep it very slim and quiet. And today I function largely as a publicist for speakers and authors who want to grow their particular brand and presence through guaranteed appearances on network television. Right. So I work with 5 networks here in Las Vegas in the English language, and there are a couple in the Spanish language, but we'll talk about that another day. I don't know if either of you is Hispanic, so we'll leave that out of the equation today.
Sí, hablo un poco de español porque...
Hablas muy bien, gringo.
Sí. Mi pregunta hoy es, okay.
Where are you guys calling in from?
Los Angeles, right here.
Okay, I grew up in LA. I'm born and raised in LA. I'm a product of Kaiser Hospital and my mother dropping me on my head. So that'll explain any aberrant behavior. So I'm an SC guy. So there you go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually live by USC.
Okay, well, if you said UCLA, I'd have to hang up.
USC, we're on your safe side right here.
Thanks,
right,
bud.
cool.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
And my mission is to, having come out of retirement a few years back, I was bored mentally. And then I was invited I was living over in Asia in Bangkok, and I was invited to come and speak at an event. This is 2016. And then I hit the ground running once again. And since then, I've shifted largely to focus on helping speakers gain international celebrity status by getting them on stages in foreign markets, getting them on TV in foreign markets, radio shows. Podcasts are already global. That's a little bit of a cheat method, but it works. And people tend to, because I think their income is tied. This is my opinion, and I'm curious what you guys think. Our income, and I'm going to include myself in this, is tied to exactly how much we believe we deserve.
Yep.
And when people write a book, get covered on television, become multi-guests on podcasts, whether it's big podcasts or small casts, their messaging gets clearer. They're able to articulate their messages. And when someone asks somebody, what do you do? They can answer in a direct manner. And because people don't want all the fluff, they want the direct. When I get people booked on TV, because I have my own show, I want direct answers. I want to be left at home, any you knows, or that irritating San Fernando Valley, like that, they don't belong on television. They don't belong on interviews. Speak like an adult, act like an adult, and you'll make adult money. Because when you tie back the money part of this, because again, people will pay you what they believe your perceived value is to them. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like when I'm asked the question, what's your definition of personal brand? I'll say it's what people say about you when you're not in the room or when you leave the room.
That's PR.
Yeah. That's you say dress for success, all these different things, and you can ask the fees that you want. But when you get the fees that you want, people believe that you are the value that you are putting out on the marketplace.
Wow.
It's matching that. There's a congruency between value and prices that you can charge.
Okay, so how do you know the exact number? I mean, it's easy, to have a range, but when you're
The
asking
exact
for
number,
a number,
this is a sophisticated answer that I'm going to offer
mm,
you. And I'm a product of a master's degree in business administration. I went through 2 years of additional schooling to learn this answer. It's a T word. You ready? Test. You test. What are people willing to pay? And
experiment.
what your competition is charging. Well, it's also, some components of that can be, if you want to charge more, add more value. Sometimes value costs you more money. It could be time, energy, maybe affiliate deals that you're adding in, or it can be a stack of bonuses, however it is, but your value needs to be commensurate with your price for the most part. There are some stubborn customers who then want to become clients. And once they become clients, then they're hooked on you. But in the customer phase, they're buying based on value that they perceive you are worth, either your products or services. This is just my opinion of being in the market and traveling the world. In some markets, people aren't ready to buy. It isn't because you didn't use the right tie down or closing technique, trial close, or they didn't see the value in it. They just might not have the money, or they're about ready to leave for a 3-month vacation and they can't buy your product. And I tell people, don't beat yourself up if you didn't sell everybody in the room.
That's so true.
It's just they could have their cat could have died and they got to bury their cat next week.
I was gonna add to that something I learned recently. On a serious note, I heard Alex Hermosi actually say something about you wanna tailor yourself to a more maybe like elite upper echelon people because they will have more funds to give you, and although that you might wanna work with people that have maybe less money, however they don't have the money to give you, then it's not worth your time. What you have to do is be niche and level up and with a more exclusive demographic so that you can reach the point where you can start reaching everyone, but you can't reach everyone.
You
You don't
can't.
do
You
that first
can't help
step.
everyone.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it does. And now Alex is a sharp guy. I've
Mm-hmm.
listened to him. He's got good points in what he shares. And
Mm-hmm.
what he's describing, based on what you shared, in my estimation, is find a starving crowd with money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've got to want what you want. Why, sell left-handed golf clubs to right-handed golfers? They're not going to buy it. But if you're speaking to a group of golf professionals who all happen to be left-handed and they can't use right-handed golf clubs, okay, you've solved that problem. Now it's your job to persuade them that your product is the best and has the best value.
Most definitely.
So, yeah, but the starving crowd with money is a formula. If people don't want it, all the sales tricks in the world, the guys that claim that they are the best and all, no, they're just not ready for it. For 3 years, I sold products on live television on a channel called Home Shopping Network. You guys, this might be your parents' generation, not yours. I'm probably your parents' age. And I had an audience of 5 million people daily. And there are products that just don't fit the lady that is sitting home, and I'm identifying the largest demographic that purchased. It wasn't no discrimination against men, but it's the confirmation. The demographic was almost 90% female,
totally
at home watching. And we're there to laser focus on that credit card, surgically extract the numbers, so our numbers start spinning on the screen in live TV, live feedback. And I'm speaking straight into a camera, not knowing until Peggy calls in I just love the product. I'm going to go back to eating bonbons now on the couch. And I just love it. I know it's going to be wonderful. So some people aren't going to buy what you have. Move on.
I wonder.
Go ahead.
I wonder if like those kind of like productions are a bit of a scam sometimes. I don't know if you know what I'm referring to, because sometimes I get that Like, for example, that first thought that popped in my head was when you were talking about, like, yeah, Peggy calls in and she's like, oh, I like that product and stuff. Sometimes, like, it's like part of a scam to get them
Oh,
to
are
buy
they
that product.
shills? I think the word, Saeed, is shills. And are they,
Shills.
yeah,
Okay.
they're
What
called
does that mean?
shills. They are fake, they are paid testimonials. And if they get caught
Ah,
doing that, that's called that's called an illegal action, and the Federal Trade Commission will come in with guys that are probably Mormon and serious and can't be bribed.
oh god.
These are people from Utah that have badges, right?
And they're serious. Yeah.
They're
Mean
going to
business.
arrest you. We didn't. I will say, in my time doing that, no, all the testimonials were real. There's no way. It was way too big a business to. Now, are there frauds? Yes, there are frauds. I have seen, for example, in the speaking environment, I've made platform closer. That's what I did for my years on the platform. And when I was a traveling speaker, speaking 2-3 times a week, traveling, boom, 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 airport to airport,
Yeah.
bang, 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 closing. Were there people who would have shills in the audience? Because here's what happens when you're selling to a crowd. People are hesitant. In those old days, they would run to the back of the room. It's none of this using the camera to take a picture of the QR code on the screen. That's where a lot of it is evolved to. That's certainly a way to do it. I'm not knocking the strategy, because that's how a lot of the younger people like to buy, is using their thumbs. And I'll take money any way it comes. My generation, when I started out, it was a piece of paper that got handed out to you. You filled it out in your seat, and there was a scarcity component. The first 10 get an added level of bonuses to motivate people to move their ass. Run to the back of the room. First 10, move. Do it now. That's how firm and direct we were. Do it now. Don't delay, or you're going to end up lying in the hay. Move. Get it. Fill it out. Move now. There are only 10 left. Now we're down to 7. Look, I look at the people in the back of the room. There are only 4 there. If you don't rush, you're going to miss out, and you're going to stay exactly where you've already been, in the quicksand of life. Move.
So
you like that?
Okay,
yeah.
I'll go buy it.
I kind of took it in a bit of a deep approach when you were saying don't get stuck in the quicksand of life. That's a very good analogy of how life is, because if you just end up sitting around doing nothing, you're gonna feel really shit about yourself.
Yeah, if you
just
do nothing, I mean, yeah, it's just a metaphor that I use, the quicksand of life. I just made that up right now. I've used others. Where you miss out
it was
on
good.
this.
It was good. I like
you
it.
miss out on the bus of success. If you don't get on that
Yes.
bus, the opportunity bus is going to take you to the next station in life, and you're going to sit and look at the bus. And the successful people take action because they recognize the opportunity. I recognize the opportunity to be on your show. I took action, filled out the form, submitted it. My background obviously resonated with you guys. We're here today. I've made 2 new friends, and you're going to continue. Yeah, you're going to continue to laugh at my jokes. Friends I use anxiously and hopefully, but then there are people that just look at the bus and they wonder what the F happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder I'm making $50,000 a year for life. And I got a wife that's bopping the pool man. Okay, she's not content. And she's eyeballing the mailman now too. And
that sucks.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a nightmare.
So how do you recover from bombing on stage, like in front of an audience? Obviously,
buddy. Oh, buddy, I feel you. I've bombed. Yeah, how do you recover? You pick yourself up, you take your lumps, and you pick up and do better next time. You recognize your mistakes, and believe me, I've blanked before. An example, one time in Australia, this is going back 2007. I spoke at an event there. In one event in Sydney, It was a perfect market, starving crowd with money. They all wanted to enter the speaking business as professional speakers. So I sold a year-long mentorship program for speakers, and there were a certain amount of done-for-you deliverables that were included. A website, we would create the content so they could really become an expert in their category. And I had an Australian partner. On that particular day, I closed 640,000 in sales. It was a very good day.
Wow.
Very good. Very good. And there was only a crowd of 115 people, about 85 buying units. So I did very well. It was one of my, probably the best total conversion in terms of attendees to dollars I've ever done. Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
Then, and that was actually when the Australian dollar was above the American.
That's, wow.
Yeah, it was slightly above it. It wasn't even at parity. Now it's about 75 cents. But at that time, it was slightly higher. So I did very well that day. Then I'm celebrating. I'm happy. And I was super excited about Australia and the opportunity. So then I got invited on the spot to go speak in Perth. This I did in Sydney. Perth is about a 4.5-hour flight to Western Australia. So I flew there, hung out for a few days because the event was the next weekend. And I spoke there at 2 events, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. Saturday, I sold again. I did well, but it was a smaller group, only about 40, 50 people. And I still did a 6-figure day. I don't remember the numbers, so I don't want to make it up. Then on Sunday, I spoke to a different crowd. They were not the right market for my offer. And I blanked. I felt like shit. How can I blank? I'm a world-class speaker. I just made X amount of dollars with these 2 cities. And here I am to these people, and they're yawning. It was the wrong offer. You cannot sell left-handed golf clubs to a right-handed golf club audience.
Even if they're all Australian. They're all Australian, right?
All Australian.
It's different, a little different.
Well, it's not just even Australia. It was the wrong offer. The offer needs to match what they want and the market. It must match. Saeed, I'm going to ask you a question. What happened to you? Because you did this with emotion, and I almost saw your eyes through your glasses. Almost is the opposite. What happened to you when you bombed?
I spaced out, like you said, and I also felt like shit after.
It happens to us all. Join the club, buddy.
Exactly. Yeah.
I got a spot for you right here, my man. But what was your offer? Who was your audience? I would look at diagnostically that.
Yeah.
What were you pitching? You know, all the mechanics of what you said in your sale. I mean, there's so many elements that you would have to look at to diagnose. But if you were to look at it through clear glasses, not the ones you're wearing, what do you think you did where you bombed? Because it's usually a very blatant reason. And some days you may suck or they suck. I mean, it happens.
100%. I think what I've been noticing about it is sometimes, depending on the customer, it can either be the way you talk about the product or the type of product itself. You know?
Okay. Might be the offer. Now, did you use testimonials in the pitch?
I always use testimonials, either of my own personal experience or other customers.
You got to use other customers. The optimal, of course, is using a live person in the audience who isn't a shill. You know, if you have somebody stand up and take the mic and talk for 30 seconds or less, key is 30 seconds or less, not to ramble, because there are those mic hogs that'll ramble and they'll tell you about their 13 cats and how cute they are. and take people off the topic of converting for you. But a live testimony, you got to hold the mic. Don't let them hold it. Do not, Saeed. You'll remember Mitch. Don't let them hold it.
Just yank it out of their hands.
Yank it. It's like, oh, thank you.
You got your 30 seconds of fame.
Yeah, don't let them touch it. It's you. You flip it handheld in their face. That let them talk in a briefly. Tell me how this product changed your life in 30 seconds or less. Set them up. You said 30 seconds or less, because I've had mic hogs. I'm not kidding. That pulled it from my mouth when I learned, no, this is mine. We're not getting into a struggle over the mic. It's my mic. My name is Mitch.
Yeah.
Mike. It's my mic. My name is Saeed. No, it's mine. And you pull it back, and after 30 seconds, or you remove it if they start rambling. You can't get them off the topic of what you're persuading people because they're on the fence. Do I buy? Do I not? Do I take out my camera and scan that QR code or not? Those are critical pieces. Testimonials make all the difference in the world. I came from an infomercial background where I sold products to people on live TV, which was at Home Shopping Network, but also I created those annoying product sales commercials that came up in the middle of the night when you're maybe insomniac and when you're experiencing sleeplessness, and people would flip on their TVs. Maybe your parents did it. You guys probably didn't. You go to your phones. But my generation, we turn on the TV, midnight TV, and somebody's selling stuff. Those people who are selling, the ones that remain on TV and sell, have testimonials. 70% of the commercials, testimonials of grandma that's using this mop. I love the smart mop. I feel smarter because I use the smart mop. It saves time. It's more thorough. And thank you, Mitch, for supplying me the smart mop. And then it goes to Peggy. And Peggy says, I can smoke more cigarettes now that I use a smart mop. Whatever it is, I can eat more bonbons. All these things that take away, it saves time, saves money, and I'm able to do what I enjoy, watching more television and buying more stuff on Home Shopping Network. All these things, you want to have the benefits tied to your product. And if someone can use that while you're presenting, your sales will be reliably positive.
So that's the key.
Key when you're selling stuff. Keynote speakers, you don't have time for a testimonial. Right. Generally. But if you want to sell, Saeed, from the stage, which is the most lucrative career in the world, you got to use testimonials and the right ones and vary the races, male, female, black, white, green people. Get some Martians in there. You want them.
Okay, so we have to be racist when we're doing it, yes.
No, inclusive of everyone.
Inclusive of Martians. They're very green. Hey, we're in this multi-pronoun. Why not multiracial in color?
Yeah, and species as well. Let's do it.
Well, let's do it.
All the animals too.
Speaking about race, when it came to audiences, what kind of audiences really? Because you said you've been to 63 countries.
Yes.
Done performances in all of those countries. Which country resonated with you the most? When you
the people that bought.
Australia.
Where?
Well, no, Australia was great. I have nothing but positive experience. They are very similar to Americans in the buying patterns. We're both got discharged from the UK. Their convicts got sent to Australia. The religious fanatics got dispatched to America. In large part, that's how it started. So we are very similar. We come from European backgrounds, I'm going to say, largely the UK. And then we started our own group here. And the rest is a history, which is another podcast topic. Australia was great. I did very well in the UK. As much as they may not like us for some reason, they should be grateful because, of course, they'd be speaking German if it weren't for the Americans. That'll gain me a lot of popularity.
Nice.
South Africans, although there's a currency issue. New Zealand was great. I spent 13 years living in Asia, so I ran events between Japan all the way to Dubai. Singapore still is my most responsive market.
Okay, Singapore.
So
because it's a small country, only 6 million people, yet they have every bit the buying power of Americans, and they tend to respect our accomplishments because of the amount of our gross domestic product is still the highest in the world. Now we'll see what happens after the election in November.
Anything's possible.
Anything's possible, guys. I don't know where we're going to go there, but we'll see.
Who are you leaning more towards to?
Oh, I think America's great because this is my culture and they understand what I say and get all the nuances of my humor. Australia
Oh
was
no, sorry.
fantastic.
I meant vote for the elections. Who are you leaning towards?
Oh gosh, I can't respond to that. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm
It's like trying to
in
dodge the
truth.
question.
No, I'll answer it this way. In truth, I'm a registered libertarian.
Okay,
I
cool.
believe in
Yeah.
limited government. There are pros and cons to both candidates. Do we want to talk for another hour?
Yeah,
Is
it'll
that
be a
what you
long
want,
episode.
Saeed, with that question?
No, that's fine. That's fine. We'll stick with the political correct answer at the moment.
Well, it's the true answer. I mean, I got in trouble. One guy wanted to fight me because I made a comment about one of the candidates, and oh my God, he was passionate. I thought, oh, I'm not getting into a fight over this.
No, that's
I
fair.
said, time out. I'm not voting for either one of them. I'm a libertarian. And I had to explain what a libertarian was, and I realized, okay.
Just limited government.
Yeah, limited
Just,
government. That's essentially it.
Give everyone their own space.
Yeah, let's be a little more freewheeling. Come on, we're democratic. Are we? Really? Okay.
So how much have you ever done like open mics like for stand-up comedy, or is it mostly like would you do the Toastmasters route and do public speaking stages? I'm curious how much of the stand-up comedy, because I know you joke a lot and a lot of it overlaps, and I'm sure there's a lot in common between stand-up comedians and public speakers.
There are a lot. Yeah. Now I deliver content in a comedic way when I speak on stage. I typically, and I don't recommend it for most people. That's an advanced strategy. And I've also fallen on my face. Saeed, I'll tell you this, man. How do you recover? I'll give you an example where I failed miserably. I was speaking in Jakarta, Indonesia, okay, which is largely a Muslim country. And I was living and I've spoken all throughout the Muslim world, except for Saudi Arabia. But I did many, many events in Dubai. Well, that audience is very mixed, even though the country itself is under Islamic rule. So I'm in Jakarta, and I'm speaking. Number one, I'm American. Now, almost every man had a beard, like you, Saeed. So I knew I was, So I knew I was in Jakarta. It reminded me. And I came out with the dumbest question, and I knew I effed up immediately after I asked the question to a crowd. There were about 300 people in the audience. And if you haven't spoken in an Islamic country, there are protocols. Women sit on one side, men sit on the other. They don't intermingle when it's really strict. Like when I spoke in Malaysia, same thing. I dealt with that. Men were on one side, women are on the other. Same in Oman. Same when I spoke in Dubai, if they are Muslim in the room. If a lot of Europeans also live in Dubai, it's not so strict. But in Jakarta, when I was at this event, most of the people were Islamic practitioners. There are Christians there, but most were Islamic practitioners. So I came out and I made a joke about, oh, God, I make sure, I said, I will make sure I finish in time for prayer. I got that. So that was my connection. So I knew about the 5 times of praying per day and respected the tradition. And I meant it because you can't go into the prayer time in a truly Islamic country because they're going to walk out.
Yeah, that's true.
They're going to walk out. They walked out in Malaysia. We broke for prayer, and we had to supply the area where they could go and pray and face Mecca and go at it. Yeah, same thing happened in when I spoke throughout Pakistan, and I learned a lot. So you need to understand the culture wherever you're speaking. Very, very important. Must understand the culture, respect the culture, and admire it. But then I made a stupid mistake. I said, I'll get done by the prayer time. So that was my connection, being a Westerner who is not Muslim, connected to the largely Muslim audience by saying, I'm going to respect your tradition. I'll get done before your prayer. I already knew that. I already knew I had to cut at a certain time so they could go and pray for the people that chose to do that. So I used my knowledge to connect with them. But here's where I messed up, guys. I said, how many of you, by show of hands, have been divorced?
Oh my God.
Oh.
I cannot say.
No hands went up. you could have heard a pin drop in a crowd of 300. I screwed up. I realized, oh my word, I am not in America. Now, in America, if you've been divorced, it's almost like a badge of honor. It's like, yeah, I'm part of the statistic. You know, I forgot what the example was that I was using in my presentation, but I remember the feeling, the searing knife that I wanted to put in my heart and die on the spot, because the reaction that I read from everybody in the audience, and nobody said a word, and they just looked at me like, you stupid American. Don't you know our culture? And because in the Islamic culture, that would almost be shameful. It's not something that they would talk about. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Totally. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I messed up. So Saeed, when you asked me, how do I recover from a blunder, or what was your word earlier?
What do you do?
I didn't sell well that day.
For sure.
I messed up big time during that particular session, because I knew, and I still had an hour to go. I said this early on. I think my session was about 90 minutes. It was pure pitch. It was a preview seminar to sell into more sessions. And I did some contract work for a internet marketing company. On occasion, I would sub in and make it extra money just to be a promotional pitchman for other people's products sometimes. I said, okay, I'll come in and do this. And it was four events. I flew to Jakarta. They arranged all that. And I did well the other 3, but that particular session, I did 4. I bombed. Didn't do well. They weren't happy.
Ooh, it's just because a joke that left them with a bad taste.
It was a bad joke.
The vibe of the room.
The whole thing, the whole feeling, because when you're connected. Mm-hmm. You know when you're connected. I mean, in a similar mistake, a speaker friend of mine, whom I know, he has a tendency to go and touch people in the audience.
Oh, man.
Well, no.
Okay, here it comes. Guys, get ready.
Oh, no.
Get ready.
Not my wife. Yeah.
But hang on. Okay. Not just wives. He would go up and he would touch men and say, "You're so handsome," and go like this to their hair. Okay. Now you can get away with that a little bit in America, but some guys are going to want to get up and punch you. Yep. Maybe. It's like, don't touch it.
Yeah.
Okay. Brace yourselves. He was doing this in Malaysia, and he touched a woman's head.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Muslim woman.
That's so bad.
Not even bad. It's terrible. Yeah. It's almost, you can't recover from that.
You're done.
Yeah, he's not making any sales that day.
How do you recover from that?
Dude, I don't know. Is it even possible to live? If you did that in Saudi Arabia, you'd find that you'd find yourself dead. You would be done. Actually, I mean, there was a guy, there's an Australian speaker who was in Dubai once speaking. And I knew him he spoke on my stages in Australia. I don't want to mention his name. Very well-known guy. Okay. New York Times bestselling author. Was in Dubai, and he talked about body language. And he mentioned to the crowd of people, if you have facial hair, you can't be trusted.
What the fuck?
Now, if you say that to a crowd of men where most of them have facial hair and their first name is most possibly either Abdul or Muhammad, you're in deep shit, man. Well, here's how they responded. In Dubai, they have something called the religious police.
Oh my God.
They're separate from the patrol people that go around. Okay, they're the religious piece. They follow Sharia law. This is no joke. They came in, people, they weren't necessarily in the audience, but somebody called them. They came in, pulled him off the stage, took him in the back, and clubbed him to shit, beat the crap out of him, and took him dragged him, threw him in the car, and dumped him at the airport. You're never coming back to Dubai. You were.
Oh yeah. No, I'm joking.
No.
Sorry.
Well, he
And
did it.
he was a
Yeah.
very
Ooh.
famous speaker.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's horrible.
he screwed up. He screwed up. You can't knock a. I mean,
Mm,
whether it's true or not is irrelevant.
Right.
You don't
It's the
yeah.
culture,
respect
the
your
people.
audience,
Yeah.
and that goes against the core beliefs because the Prophet Muhammad had a beard, and that's still
Yeah.
carried on for centuries after he left the earth. But that presence, I think that's why a lot of Islamic practitioners have a beard, because it's culture, and it's also
Totally.
probably honoring their prophet. Am I right or wrong?
No, that's
Yeah.
very true. And this like begets the question of, is cultural awareness a key factor in a public speaker's um, arsenal of tools, basically?
Should be, or you're going to shit on yourself.
So,
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
and is this something that's lacking in like
can
in
be on the
certain public
international
like
Saeed, the answer is domestically. Okay, the United States. Where do you guys live? What city are you in?
Los Angeles over
I'm in
here.
Okay,
London.
that's right. You're both in LA. Okay,
Mhm.
that's right.
No,
I
no,
He's
think
I'm
in
in
the
London,
UK.
in the UK.
Mhm.
you're in the UK. Okay, you
Yeah,
can answer better a little bit there, but you're in LA. I know LA. That's where I lived most of my life.
yeah,
In LA, there's so many cultures involved. You got to
Mhm.
be somewhat careful. You can't make any Mexican jokes because
Mhm.
half the audience is going to be Hispanic. Okay, in the
yeah.
UK, you've got now it's such a melting pot of Brits. I mean, you've got Pakistanis,
Mhm.
you've got Indians, you've got native or British. You've got everything there. You've got Eastern Europeans living there, Russians, all of that. So that you have to be careful what you say. I've spoken in the UK several times,
Hmm.
and I would make it a self-effacing joke about being American to
Yeah.
connect with the audience. The very first time, here's a cultural answer, Saeed. You asked that question. Or was it, I don't know. When I was in
Yeah.
Australia the first time,
Mhm.
the promoter over there, a guy named Mal Emery, asked me, Mitch, how are you going to get over the bias they have? I said, what bias? Well, they don't like you, mate. I said, well, I'm not looking to mate them. He says, no, I'm being serious, mate. I said, what? He said, you're American and they don't like your politics. And George Bush was in office back then. So what
Oh
I
shit.
said, in order to connect before I began my presentation,
Yeah.
he did my intro. I took the stage, took my mic, and I said, guys, before I begin today, let me get rid of one possible question all of you might be asking. I did not vote for George Bush. I got a standing ovation before I even presented. I then closed like crazy that day. I had a banner day,
Yeah.
a long queue of people waiting to buy my stuff, simply because I addressed the elephant in the room, me being an American
Yeah.
Mhm.
in a country where they were hating our politics because during George Bush's reign, as an ally to the Americas or the American people, the
Yeah.
Australian military had to go and support us. People hated that.
Mm.
Why are they sending these nice Australians over there who just want to jump around with kangaroos over to fight a war that makes no sense? And there were no weapons, and we know the history. So that was all BS. But that's how I used the cultural difference to my
Mhm.
advantage.
Totally.
Okay.
Connecting with the audience. So when you do a joke like that, you get a response of laughter.
Yep.
What other kinds of responses are you looking for from a crowd when you're
Head
doing
nodding,
Mm-hmm.
head nodding, asking trial questions of, is this making sense to you so far? Yes? Raise your hand
Mm-hmm.
if you can see yourself implementing the strategies I've just shared with you over the last 15 minutes. These are pre-closing techniques, trial closes to make sure they're with me. Because if all the hands don't go up, I know that I haven't connected properly. It's a way of using my thumb on their pulse to see if they're alive. And it
Uh-huh.
also creates audience involvement. by raising their hand. And
Yeah.
it's important, even, and you also have to be aware when you're being translated. The first time I spoke in Japan, I learned some techniques over there. When I'm working with translation, where they're wearing earbuds because there are translators in a booth that are telling or translating what I'm saying, you can't say, if this makes sense, raise your hand. You've got to reverse the order. Raise your hand if this makes sense. So they're raising their hand, and then my content follows because there's a delay.
Okay.
Do you follow?
So they have to be okay with the pause.
Well, you got to prep them.
Okay.
You got to prep them. So instead of, okay, Saeed, does this make sense? And then you're going to raise your hand in following, or Saeed, raise your hand. Does this make sense?
Raising my hand? Yeah.
Yes.
Raising my hand makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. If this made sense to you. So I'm asking you to raise your hand in advance so it's timed, it's syncing with my presentation and speaking. See, I want the hand raise. You've got to be aware that there's a delay.
I see.
Okay.
There's a delay going through a translation booth of the translators that are working there very hard. They're taking in what you've just said in English. Arigato. And they say this. Yeah. And then Yoshi heard you. And then he responds.
I see.
Yeah. And in that country, man, they are so disciplined. They queue up properly. There's none of this mob stuff. You go over to China, which is just a stone's throw away, totally different culture.
Wow.
Totally different. I mean, as night and day. We think there's differences coming from LA versus London. Oh my gosh, nothing like the difference between China and Japan.
You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Between China and Japan?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Even the Singaporeans, who are of Chinese descent largely, comment about China, which is a massive country. China and India are the two largest.
Yeah, totally.
1.4, 1.5 billion, I think, and they're still actively having intercourse. So who knows by the end of this call, we could have many more. Okay. But in China, they don't queue. They just mob rush. India, they mob rush. They don't queue.
Ooh.
Very similar, like to get on a bus or push, man. They just go. Japanese are quite orderly and queue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Japanese don't scream, Chinese do. And now there are reasons possibly why and why not. It might be the language or just how they communicate. I don't know either language to explain that. I do know that culturally, Japanese are very respectful, at least outwardly.
That is true.
Yeah, very respectful. I've done about 17 events in Japan, so I know from experience. I've spoken to a Chinese audience multiple times in Malaysia. They're also very respectful. They're very closely aligned to the Singapore culture. But when I attended a Tony Robbins event in Singapore, there were about 13,000 people at this. At the end of the event, we're all waiting in the taxi line. The queue is long. Singaporeans are orderly. There were very few Americans, but a few of us were there. Mostly my friends. I was living in Asia. I was living in Thailand. So I was with the Thais and we're standing in line. Then the mob of 3,000 Chinese come walking out from China. Mainland China people came over to attend Tony Robbins' event. And I wanted to see the biggest speaker in the world at the time, see how he ran things. I don't know him personally, but I know everybody knows who he is and wanted to watch his event. They come out, the Chinese come out, and they just cut the entire line. They don't respect the queue. The Singaporeans went crazy. They started screaming at them, this is not effing China.
Yep.
Get in line. And they looked and they pretended like they didn't understand, and the operative word is pretended. Because they knew what they were doing. They tried to impose their values on a Singaporean audience. No. They, and they started speaking in Chinese, and then of course I was left in the dark. I don't know what they were saying.
Totally.
But they went back and forth, but you couldn't stop them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different culture there of, I think it is, the way it was explained to me was they come from a communist background and they don't know if their
Yeah.
food's going to be there tomorrow. Even though they're a wealthier country today, they still react based on the indoctrination of the communist system.
That's so cool.
So they're conditioned to
They are,
that way.
That's
exactly.
interesting how that,
So
how people behave in groups also, and
they didn't
culture.
travel. The
Mhm.
borders were closed for so many decades during the Cold War that they were insular. This is how they behaved. And once the borders opened up and they started extending into the international markets, they're nice people. There's nothing wrong with them as a race. I'm not making a discriminatory comment. I'm observing and understanding the why.
Mm-hmm.
And if you come from that type of a upbringing, there may not be bread tomorrow in their parents' generation or grandparents' generation under Chairman Mao going back. It's like they were starving maybe. And how are we going to, you got to rush and get it now. That happens also with some people that come from Cuba. When they come to America, they're very different than the Cubans that have been in the U.S. for decades, that might have left in the 60s versus the newest batch today that come over. Their behavior, they haven't assimilated into American culture yet. It takes a generation in many cases.
And what you're describing is more like individualism versus more collectivism and working together, right? Which is queuing versus rushing for yourself. I mean, it's always interesting to reflect and to look at how different cultures have that upbringing. Because here in the U.S., we're very like individualistic. I think like trying to make set goals for yourself and achieve those goals. I mean that's what you did, and there's different drives that people have. I was curious to ask you, Mitch, before we continue about what was your drive to get into the work you're in when you were younger? Because from what I understand, when you were 22, you were set up. You had a lot of you were given some money, and so you already had money earlier on. Is that story true?
Yeah, the story is my parents died when I was 22, back to back, 5 weeks apart. I was an only child. I got left some money and I went living in LA. I don't have the rags to riches story. I have the riches to rags story. I grew up in Beverly Hills and went to grade school all the way through high school. My university was University of Southern California. While I was at SC, my parents died, bang, bang. And I was in complete emotional shock. I was very close to both of them. And the best way I can describe it is I felt abandoned and alone because my entire world, I had friends. I'm not saying I was socially retarded and I had no friends. No, I was social, had friends. And certainly when I got left all this money, I had many, many girls that wanted to be with me because I'm the guy. I drove a Porsche and I had the bag of dope. And I used to be good looking. It's hard to manage or imagine now, but 41 years ago, I was handsome. At least I thought I was. And certainly when you got loaded, I really felt handsome. And I went on a absolute sex, drugs, and rock and roll crazy downward spiral until I landed with no money. Literally, that's why I say I went from riches to rags. And then realized, oh shit, I'm about to die. I was 150 pounds instead of, as I am today, 220, which is probably a little bit pudgy. So I was 50 pounds thinner than I should have been. My normal weight is like around 200. And I had a bleeding nose, a wheeze from smoking a freebase cocaine, which is before crack. And I was devastated emotionally. I hadn't cried yet, based on the loss of my parents. And then I realized I just started weeping and cried uncontrollably, realizing, oh shit, I've burned through everything. I owe the drug man a lot of money. And my cars, I had 3 cars, and I was down to a Volkswagen with no bumper and an expired license registration, and my license had already been suspended because I got 9 speeding tickets in my Porsche. So my license had already been suspended. And I was driving this beat up VW and realized my life had gone to shit. And I better turn it around or I'm going to die. So I sought help, and the rest is a positive history. Not an easy one, but a difficult one. I went through a lot of rebuilding. For 3 years, it took me to pay off my debt that I owed various people, to where I came out of that doom and gloom to where there was some light at the end of the tunnel, the proverbial tunnel that we were agreed to or speak about. And I started speaking about my recovery publicly in meetings of Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, which was my vehicle to recovery. And there are many paths. Some people find church, God, religion, whatever works for the individual, I say. This was my path. And after about 3 years, I'm out of debt, had started a business, and was doing well. And I got asked to start speaking at more and more meetings. Somebody in the audience approached me and said, "You're a good speaker. And what do you do professionally?" And I shared with my own small boutique advertising agencies, focusing on direct mail was my expertise at that point. "Would you like to come and speak in Seattle?" So I flew out of Burbank Airport up to Seattle, first class on Alaska Airlines. He booked this ticket for business class, which I'd never flown before. Put me up in a hotel. I spoke for 45 minutes at a lunch and learn in a very nice hotel on the top floor, overlooking all of Seattle, which is beautiful when it's clear. And I spoke to this audience and sold $65,000. So I got paid $500, sold $65,000, and realized, oh my gosh, instead of selling one-to-one, I've just sold one-to-many. And the whole world opened up to me. And because of public speaking, prior to entering the program of recovery, I had never spoken. I was actually, the idea of speaking petrified me, terrified me, scared me to the bone. And I sucked in the beginning until I became better and more comfortable. And I worked through the pain. You got to work through the pain in order to get to the pleasure. You got to work through the discomfort. You know, I compare this. I mean, I happen to have a deep martial arts background as part of that was my chosen sport. And in order to arrive at black belt, you break a lot of fingers, get a lot of bruises. I'm a 6-degree black belt in Taekwondo. And believe me, I earned it. I blocked with my face a lot. That's why I'm not good looking anymore. But you go through a lot of pain to get to higher levels. It's just part of the process. Any elite athlete will tell you they've got broken bones, bruises, this, that, sprains. You deal with it. That's my metaphor of the sports component. Same in life. I don't know too many people who've had a straight line. Even Elon Musk, who seems to have the Midas touch and, the gold finger, he's had his ups and downs.
Yeah, that's true.
He's had his ups and downs.
For sure.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos has had his experiences with failure. All these guys, Mark Zuckerberg, he went through his stuff. Bill Gates, all of them have endured and pushed through the pain to get the reward. And I think what makes the difference between successful people and unsuccessful is successful people work through the pain and don't stop. They don't stop. You got to take a few punches to the face. Metaphorically, and in order to, you've got to get through that pain and the fear associated with the pain. And I like the acronym of fear: face everything and rise. Face everything and rise through it. Get through the pain, the discomfort. Go through your own mental boot camp to where then you can wear a clean press uniform, just like you do when you go through the military, regardless of the country or background. got to press through that pain. And I think the strong
Yeah.
endure, whatever it is. When I
Um,
spoke in the beginning, I wasn't good, Saeed. I had so many blunders. I only shared a couple. I mean, beyond the cultural stuff. I've not, I was not good in the beginning. I was not. It took
mhm.
time and a lot of acceptance and discomfort, shame, fear, and bad results. People said you ought to give it up. I'm not giving it up.
Never give up.
I didn't
That's
give
the
up. I
main
endured.
thing.
I pushed through the pain. I knew because of my martial arts background, having 6 broken noses and getting punched a lot, getting kicked a lot, getting hurt, the reward of the I was a sport fighter. I didn't do it for street or any of that. I competed
Mhm.
at it. That was my chosen sport to compete professionally, amateur, then pro. I got injured a lot. Today I've had 17 orthopedic surgeries. I could show you all my zippers on my body. Was it
Oh
worth
wow.
it? Absolutely. It's my background. I've learned many lessons because of the pain I've gone through. Not too many
Mhm.
successful people will say that they've had a pain-free life that I know
That's
of.
true.
Yeah. I mean, we've all endured. You guys have parents. I mean, they went through what they went through in order
Totally.
to raise you, and we did what we did. And the people that the worst thing you can do for a kid is, given that I grew up in Beverly Hills, I was around a lot of these trust fund kids. The worst
Yeah, yeah.
thing a parent can do is hand money to an inexperienced kid that's under 30 and say, here's $10 million, here's whatever. They're just going to spend it.
And that's
I
gonna
was
happen to you.
22 and
Yeah.
emotionally bankrupt. And
Yeah.
all I wanted was women, and everything else that went with it. And guess what? When the money went, where do you think the women went?
Yeah, they were
Gone.
gone.
Yeah, to the
Gone.
drug dealer.
I was no longer handsome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was and if you're broke, you're not
Ah,
handsome. We know that as men. If you're broke, you get no women.
So
wow.
when you look back at that time period when you were in your 20s and
Yeah.
you had this massive amount of money out of nowhere,
Mhm.
and and the way you were spending it compared to how you would spend it now, how do you see it now? Like, what exactly were you trying to do when you were living that lifestyle?
22, all I wanted was a way to deal with the pain I was in. And I
Hmm.
anesthetized myself through cocaine, liquor, pills, and the E sisters, sleazy and easy. I wanted all of them. And
Yeah.
it was endless. And I mean, no disrespect to women, but there's a square peg for every, a round peg for every round hole. And I was there to find someone that matched me. You find your natural level where you're at in life.
Yeah.
Who you hang around. So I hung around women and girls, young girls. Everybody was overage. I never went underage. I don't give that. I
Uh-huh.
had enough awareness to never do that. I was around young women who loved to party
Yeah, yeah.
until I stopped partying, and then they disappeared. They were gone in an instant.
So
Quality women that they were.
it's not a sustainable lifestyle, right?
No, no,
Because
I burned
uh,
out, man. I was burned
yeah,
out. Almost died. I
I
had
was
overdoses, and I mean, it was terrible.
wow.
But it got me to
Holy
where I
shit.
am today. I had to endure that pain in order to come to the pleasure point of living life without being wasted, drunk. And
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I could never drink just 3 glasses of wine like normal people. It was
Yeah.
bottles of it. I can't
It's
have one
interesting.
screwdriver. Give me 15 of them. Wasn't one
Yeah.
kamikaze? Give me the whole slew of them, one after the other. That's the way I drank. I can't have any of it because I know my tendency. It's my kryptonite.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
There's a friend of mine was telling me that his ex-girlfriend was the type of person who would party and do cocaine on the weekends and then somehow just fully function throughout the week and like also work out and as if it was, a regular hobby to do, just like have cocaine on the weekend and just like function throughout the day. Uh, and she kind of roped him into it, but then eventually he got an awakening. Is like, this is not for me, and he broke up with her and got away from that. So I'm just like thinking about that. And I was telling him the exact same thing you were telling me, that it's not sustainable. It's not, you eventually are going to burn out. It's not a healthy habit to have in your life, because in the end, even if it's working right now, you are a human being, and this is a chemical that is not supposed to stay in your body. You're not supposed to constantly be taking it over a period of time. It's not like a type of medication that cures you. It's something short term that you constantly do, and at the same time has a long term side effect.
Well, if you can even make it to long term. Next week, I'm going to
Yeah.
turn 64. I was 23 when I decided to clean up my life. Guys, there's no, what somebody told me early on in one of the meetings, what are you going to do? Sit in your rocking chair and freebase cocaine? You don't make it that long. You don't make it that long. You're going to die.
I mean,
can you imagine grandpa smoking, meth or what have you? It's just not going to happen.
That's wild.
You don't make it to that point. Rocking chair and
I
holding would you want your son, if it was your grandpa holding your baby while he's rocking back and forth, smoking a doobie, and then freebasing?
Oh my God.
No, you know what I'm saying? It's just a
That's
bad
not possible.
visual.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
And he's not going to live that long. I mean, alcohol has a slower burn rate in many cases. They can sometimes live longer, but somebody that does drugs, you don't see a guy with a white beard and a big belly that's that's freebasing. Oh, look at me, and I'll tell you from the days of the 40s. No, he's gone. He's dead already.
Yep.
The people that I used with, most of which who stayed in it, they're long dead, like decades ago.
So you chose life over death.
Correct. Precisely. Perfectly stated. I chose to live versus die. And I was on the path to destruction.
It's, amazing hearing this story because, when I have friends my age or younger or older that are going through some difficult periods.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, will they have a second chance? Will they have a way to get out of it? But hearing your story makes me feel more hopeful that people do recover and can get better and can reflect and make better choices. And I don't know.
It's a disease of the mind, my friend, and it's the only disease that is self-diagnosed.
Yeah.
It's the only disease that is self-diagnosed. We go to the doctor to find out, that we have, hardening of the arteries, or we have chest this or diabetes or what have you. That's very objective. But if your life is crashing and gone to shit and you don't do anything about it, you're doomed. And, people can love you and support you, but you've got to make that choice. I made that choice. I fortunately did have friends around me who said, Mitch, you're screwing up. You're going to die. And after you hear that several times, in some cases, if you're lucky, you'll hear it and make a change. Many do not. It's unfair. Many die prematurely, way before their natural death should have happened. And it's because they abused themselves. They couldn't get out of that downward spiral. And it's tough, man. Some people will get it. More than likely, if you have several friends that are in that, one or two will die. That's the reality. I'm sorry. That's the reality. It happens because sometimes it takes that to shock people into, oh man, that could be me. Because we live through the experiences of others that we see, usually the ones closest to us, that will give us an example of what either to do or not to do. In that case, it's the ones not to do. And then we aspire towards the people who have something that we may want or dream about. Follow their path to success, do what they've done in order to replicate their successful steps, and avoid the ones that aren't.
It's a bit.
It's that simple, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
bit sad though that it takes, you know, you literally fearing your own life and near death or seeing the death or, you know, injury of someone around you for you to wake up. You know, I wish there was an easier way for people to take that leap of faith that's not that extreme, because more people would do it, you know,
Very
changing,
true.
going into the new unknown. Yep.
Well, this has been an interesting call today. It didn't go where I expected, but it went where it was needed.
Yep, Saeed.
Definitely agree. Ali, we've learned quite a lot today, haven't we? We've
Yeah.
learned how to recover from a bombing in a performance to a bombing in life, how to recover from both, learned how to improve our public speaking skills, what to be aware of, and also not to mock people with beards and
Oh
call
no,
them
I won't do it,
distrustful
buddy.
people.
I have many Muslim friends. I won't pick on you. Yeah. Why would I? You
That's
know,
good.
we're all just people at the end of the day.
Totally.
Exactly. We have
We're
to be
all
all
just people at the
considerate
end of
of
the
each
day.
other.
And we got to
Yeah.
respect our differences so we can be together. And
That is
I
very
have
true.
friends of all faiths. I lived in Thailand for many years, and which is a Buddhist country, and they're a peaceful people. It's very cool what you can learn from Buddhists as well. And what I've learned most from speaking all over the world is we're very similar and dissimilar at the same time. But at the bottom line, we all just want to have a tranquil life, a good life, and have a family around us that supports us, that we love, because that L word is powerful. However, it comes through in all forms based on cultural ways that influence it. But I would say I'm happy today. And if I were to look back on my life, when I realize I'm probably in the final run of it, I have something to put on my tombstone today. Because had I died when I could have at the age of 22, because where I was taking myself, it would have just said Mitch Carson, birth of 1960 through 1983, which where I, at that time, and there was no content. Today, my tombstone is filled with accomplishments and people I've been able to help and be with, that have supported me and that I've supported them. I've been able to live a full existence. I'm not saying I'm dying next week, because I'm not. I'm in decent health. I just have something to add today.
Totally.
And when you get to a certain level, it's my privilege to be able to share with younger people such as you guys and anybody else in your audience what I've learned, and hopefully some of it will resonate. And if it doesn't, go back and listen to it later, because you can learn something from the older people who've experienced a life of before and after, or that continuum of our journey, because it is a journey. Before you know it, it's over. I can remember when I was young like you guys, just like yesterday. And then all of a sudden I wake up, oh shit, I'm looking in the mirror. I'm going to be 64 next week. What the heck happened? It happens, man.
Yeah. That's amazing life insight, Mitch. Thank you for sharing that. Where can people contact you or get in touch with you?
MitchCarson.com is my main site, and that's where you got to get a snapshot of my background. And, if you're looking to do business, if you want to get on TV, here's my little pitch. And it's not part of it was a pleasure, guys, for me to just share and get to know you. Seriously.
Yeah.
If they're interested in getting on network television or having more publicity, if they're authors or speakers, they can reach out to me at getinterviewedguaranteed.com/meet with Mitch. Make an appointment. Happy to sit and talk to anybody one-on-one to see if media makes sense for your background. My market is largely limited to speakers, authors, and CEOs. If you're an employee of a corporation, probably not a good fit for what I offer for my business. If you have a problem with drugs and alcohol, my phone is always open. Please reach out to me, like I was going to offer. Ali, if you have friends who are struggling with that, I'll give you my number. I do that for free. That comes from my heart. I'm always privileged to help somebody that suffers from that addiction issue. And that's what I give freely. In order to feed myself, I have my publicity business. But if there's anybody, reach out to me. And I mean that with
Thank you,
all
Mitch.
seriousness.
For
That
sure.
is
Thank you.
where my heart exists. I go to meetings every day so I can speak and help newer people that are struggling with that problem.
That's very kind of you, Mitch. Thank you so
Yep,
much.
sure.
Guys, thank you for watching another episode of A2 the Show. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Guys,
Subscribe.
Mitch, just to let you know, this is how we end the podcast. We salute and then cover the camera. If you want, you can join us. Guys, peace.
Out.